What is up, YouTube? In this video, we're going to be sharing a private segment, a training with David Duford on how to scale your agency, how to grow your recruiting, and the massive seven-figure opportunity that there is there, and tons of other things on how to be a top producer, what you should be investing in leads, what leads you should be working, and telesales face-to-face. You're going to get all that in this video. And so if we have not yet met, my name is Johnny Nitafan. Please like and subscribe just so you're up to date on the most important things. Again, this was in our private sales community. So click the link down below if you want to join the private community so you're getting up to date, the most up to date information, as well as private trainings from me that I do just for people in that group. So definitely stay till the end because there's actually a Q&A with tons of great questions as well in there. And this is part 2 of a 10-part series with top producers doing it in the game and that have crushed it. So I'll see you guys in the private community. Hope you guys enjoy. Start with producing. What are some actionable steps that new agents can come in and do? So right now, what I'm seeing is like there's things that are, everybody says do the revenue generating activities, right? Get on the phone, do that stuff. But what are the things that maybe aren't revenue generating activities at the start that new agents need to do? As in role playing, as in memorizing scripts, like those types of things. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, so, I've been doing this since 2013, recruiting agents. I sold final expense starting in 2011. So I've got a lot of experience from both sides of the table. And we just recently reinvented our business on the recruiting side. And our shtick now is it's always been training, but now we've leveled it up to one-on-one training for every agent that is accepted to join. And I think the big thing I would say is that one of the realities of the world we live in is we all work remotely, whether we sell in person or over the phone. We're not in an office with our people, right? Our trainers, our managers, et cetera. And we lose out on a lot of that kind of camaraderie, right? There's no real boiler room to go to grind it out and kind of enjoy the process, right? And with that, you miss a lot of learning opportunities and coaching and role-playing opportunities that I think can stagnate your progress. And what we've discovered since we've implemented, I have trainers now that train agents, for example. The one-on-one stuff just totally accelerates your progress because there are things that you're doing that you're not aware of that are screwing up the sale, that are causing you to lose your client to lose trust in you. And you think you're following the script, but you're really not. And the only way you're going to find that stuff out is either A, on the first level, record yourself and listen to it, but on a deeper level, B, go to your trainer or somebody who knows what they're doing to then tell you, hey, you hear when you said this? Yeah, what's wrong with that? Well, the way you're saying it comes off this way, and you're causing people to, for example, be distracted or frustrated or whatever. And that kind of stuff is huge. And it's all revenue producing, right? It's not immediate. But it has a direct impact on it. So to me, the more hands-on training you can get, not just videos, guys. I mean, like having somebody who's a pro in the business, beat you up a little bit constructively, of course, the better off you're going to be, quicker, faster.
Yeah. That reminds me of something. I actually heard this morning, and it said your nose is 1 inch from your mouth, but it takes somebody else to tell you that you have bad breath.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like you have that, and it's like you need somebody there to be able to coach you through that. And so it sounds like role playing is a super big piece of like getting on and not just like, hey, start hammering the phone, but hey, let's role play.
And I'll add to that, Johnny, you have to be coachable too as well. You can't like hide from the constructive criticism. You can't shrink in the corner and not expose yourself to potentially being humbled. Like it's an equal playing field. Like you got to have somebody who's going to give it to you, but you got to give too. And a lot of us could work and be better at that, for sure, myself included. I think I'm definitely an introvert. Like I'm a lone wolf guy. I don't know about you guys. Like I could roll solo all day long. I don't need anybody, but that's a strength, but it's also a weakness because I don't expose myself to these great opportunities to get better. So, you kind of get in your own little bubble. So, and the way in which we all sell over the phone or in person kind of it facilitates, unfortunately, that as well. So So put yourself out there. Nobody's going to make fun of you. Nobody really cares, really, but your manager does, trainer does, and it's just the easiest way to get better faster. And we need to look for things that leverage and multiply outcomes, and that's putting yourself, being coachable and getting training is really the best thing to do that.
So you mentioned giving, like a new agent coming in, being able to give, like give back to the trainer, right? What does that look like?
Oh, I was going to say overrides.
Yeah,
Make some sales and we'll call it even.
right?
That's kind of how I look at it. But no, to answer your question a little more sincerely, yeah, just, participate, right? I think like what we do, again, I can only reference what we do, guys. And it's no shameless plugging here, but this is how we do it.
Yeah,
We have a predefined program to train agents. They know exactly what to expect. They show up to 2 calls a day. So do your part, show up to the call, do your homework. We'll fire agents that don't do their homework, right? Because we can tell pretty quickly if somebody's not doing what they should do, then when it comes, like push comes to shove and you're actually talking to a real prospect, you're going to suck. It's just why waste all of our times, right? And if you're not as committed to what this business can give you, I mean, look at all the multimillionaires and the businesses that have come out of nothing in a short period of time. There's so much potential in this business, guys. Like we all kind of sell ourselves short on where we can go in this business.
yeah.
And if you're already giving up on yourself that early, like why even bother? It's kind of how I look at it. So
So are
bring
those,
yourself to it and show up and be serious about it.
yeah, are those people, all like, are they all pretty much buying their own leads and things like that? And then you're just role playing one-on-one with them, or how's that
Like in
work?
my
How's
agency,
that process? Yeah.
yeah, we actually do a combination of both. This was another initiative we tested out with. Um, Most of our agents are brokers, so they're buying. We call a broker somebody buys their own leads. Multiple carriers, et cetera. They all get one-on-one coaching, mentorship, all the same. But we also have a division to where we have what's called an 8-week fast track program. And the idea behind that is they have to sell full-time and they have to sell face-to-face. That's our constraints in order to be considered. You get fresh, not direct mail, Facebook leads for 8 weeks straight. We scale them up as you start writing business because we want to push you to write, and they're for free. But in the same breath, you got to be coached and trained. And in the sense on that program, we're a lot more, how can you say, particular about who we let to get free leads. Like if you're not showing up for training, you're not improving, we'll fire you. And that's all because it's our money at play. It's a little different when it's the agency's money versus the
Yeah.
agent's money, right? So we do train them both. You got to. I think it's non-negotiable anymore. Especially telesales. That to me, you have to be trained on telesales. It is far harder than face-to-face in my humble opinion.
Yeah. So a new agent coming in wanting to scale up to start 10,000 a month, what are the steps that they need to go through to be able to get there?
First of all, learn how to sell. You have to know how to sell. That is the money-making activity that matters above and beyond everything else. That's why we train agents to sell first, not to market. In my opinion, I think you are doing yourself a disservice by trying to buy a course to learn how to market. If you're if you're brand new to the business, if you've been doing this for a while, go for it. It's a great way to pick up another skill set, lower your acquisition costs. But the thing is, you already know how to sell at that point. So for me, I think the big thing is you have to learn how to sell first and foremost. And then, so that means you got to buy leads. And that's fine. That's just the tuition cost you have to pay. And then as you get in there, you should buy 100+ leads a week if you're doing telesales, is what I tell my agents. Minimum if you're full-time.
New leads, right? Or old leads?
I prefer fresh and exclusive. I always have. In my heart of hearts, I am an agent. I want every odd and edge in my favor, and I don't want to use leads that have been called a bunch of times. It's not that you can't make sales on them. I just don't want to take the risk that I might be wrong if I'm new. If we feel strongly about having the best carriers and the best sales training and the best support, why would we then accept the garbagest, crappiest leads that are out there? I don't understand it. So for me, my opinion, you should get good leads too, fresh and exclusive. Give yourself the best chance of success is what I say.
So what's that? What would you encourage a new agent's like lead investment to be able to have the optimal success? Say hypothetically they're wanting to do 10,000 AP. what would that look like, you think, working just exclusive leads?
Well, again, for my agency, we take we start our agents at a minimum of 750 to 1250 a week. Could be more than that. And I don't think as a new agent, you should go much higher than that, but you need to be in that ballpark of around $1,000, give or take, because that's what it really takes anyway to buy retail Facebook leads if you're doing telesales, or even like direct mail leads or Facebook leads if you're doing face-to-face. And then from there, scale up. Again, what I want you guys to, speaking of the investment thing, if that like makes you scared, understand we all felt that. I remember going from, 500 to 1,000, then the 2,500 a week. Like, you have to kind of jump up to it, right, as you feel comfortable. But the way that you need to think about this business is not so much what are you spending, it's investing, not spend. What do we spend money on crap we don't need? What do we invest in stuff that makes us money, right? Leads are your investment to make more money off of, which leads me to my major point. This business is about return on investment. I don't care how expensive the lead is. If I can get 3 to 1, 4 to 1, 5 to 1 predictably every single time, cost doesn't matter because there's a multiplier of revenue coming in on that, right? So don't get too hung up. I'm not saying go buy, oh, that's it. I'm going to go spend $10,000 a week as new age. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that once you realize you can actually go out there and take leads and make money on top of that, the price of the leads matters much less, because you can predictably go out there and make it. Well, what if you're brand new? Well, you got to take that leap of faith. Every single business, there's a leap of faith to get started, guys. You just don't know until you do it. That's never going to change. So get over it and just do it. But that's what I'm saying, Johnny, is to me, it's around 1,000. It's about ROI ultimately, though. And once you realize that and you're starting return, it's like, how much more can I put into this? Because you want the best problem in the world to have. Too many people to talk to, which is a lot better than the worst problem to have, which is what? Too few. We can fix too many. You just slow the leads down. Harder to fix too few. Could cause you to lose out and fail the business.
Yeah. So you would say about 750 to 1250 a week.
Yeah, somewhere in there. That's part-time, a little less. If some guys start part-time, that's fine. That's what I did too. So somewhere in that range is acceptable.
Yeah. I really like that, honestly. And like, that's where I started at about 800 a week. Like I came in, I was like, you could work a lead.
Yeah, I know you went door to door. I remember your story. It's like, oh, like people actually are interested.
Yeah.
Let
me get as many as possible of these. So I like that. So what would you like, what's your advice, or like somebody that's, because I feel like a lot of people that I'll talk to are, they're in a job, they're working either full-time, part-time currently. How do you navigate that? And when is the right time to jump to going full-time into insurance?
Correct. Yeah, great question. I'll start by telling my story briefly if the audience hasn't heard this. I started, like I said, in 2011. I stumbled across the insurance business because I was desperate. I didn't want to go work for the man, but I wanted a business type of thing to do, right? And when push comes to shove, what do you do when you're desperate? You sell insurance. It's kind of what I've discovered. I like the idea of it too, because you're capable of doing it part-time. I had a personal training gym. Like I said, I was losing business, but I wasn't like going out of business, but I knew over time things would get worse. So, and I didn't want to give up the training situation. We're training clients in personal training gym to take a risk and go all in the final expense. So I started part-time. And it took me about 6 months of consistently saying, hey, every single month here, I'm making some money. Sure, some months are better than others, but I like the business. This is great. Before I had the confidence to go full-time. And then I failed out of the business about 6 months later, about the 12-month mark, quit the business, was sick and tired of it, and then got back in again full-time, or sorry, I should say part-time, for about a year, while I worked a full-time job at a uniform services company. So my point is, I've done this twice, doing this business part-time. I know what it's like. And here's some kind of high points I would give you. Number one, even though you're on a part-time schedule, treat it with a full-time mentality. I don't care if you only go out 2 or 3 times a week, you get on the phone or in person. This is a business. Don't have a hobby-esque type of mentality about it. Like, well, I think I'm going to take the day off. I'll just do it some other time. No, put it in your schedule, run it like a business. Again, you could be a millionaire in 10 years from now. Now think about that. If you had millions of dollars from this business because of how you scaled, how you built, whether it's an agency or scaled up, how seriously would you treat this business, right? Sometimes I think we have to work on our why and really the big picture of what's possible. And then hell, you do whatever it takes. I know I would have. But start with a full-time mentality, even though you're on a part-time job, a part-time situation. The second thing is cash is king, guys. Okay. I can tell you this from personal standpoint. When you've got 50 grand, 100 grand in the bank, life is great. When you can just let off the gas pedal and like, even if you have a bad week that things are okay because you got some money in the bank, it kind of changes your stress level and anxiety level. I sure as hell didn't start it that way. I had 4 credit cards maxed out, bunch of loans. I had to crawl myself back to zero, right? But I can tell you this, the second go around, the thing I learned from the first time is every dollar that I was spending, I was saving or reinvesting back in the leads. I wasn't going to spend it because by the time I was planning to go full time, which ended up being about a year, the second time around, I wanted to have a big fat bankroll so that I never ever had to go work for somebody again and risk, having to, be failed out completely. So for me, it's treat it seriously and save every single penny that you can. Because when you go full time, don't ever look back at working for anybody else. And that money on hand is absolutely everything. It just makes life so much easier.
Yeah, for sure. So what are some core just business 101 principles to be able to get to that saving spot? Like how do you manage your money when you start really bankrolling and cash flowing? What should an agent look what should somebody do in that situation when you're starting to get the money in, being able to account for chargebacks, being able to save money, pay yourself, things like that?
I mean, the easiest advice, nothing earth shattering here, is you got to live frugal, guys. Don't spend your money on stupid shit. Don't buy a brand new car or Rolex or whatever you guys do. Like, just live cheap. I mean, really, live cheap. Yeah. You should be saving for a rainy day because there will become a time when you get a half dozen chargebacks all of a sudden and you're down 3 or 4 grand, and you don't want to quit this business because of one stupid decision. The other thing too, guess what happens when you make a lot of money? Guess who's coming after you now? Uncle Sugar, the IRS. This is a thing that a lot of good agents run into, is they forget as they make all that money that Uncle Sam wants a piece now. And you got to set your money aside. You got to pay every quarter. You should be putting aside money on top of that. There are good agents I've talked over the years that are making 150, 200 grand a year, but they owe the IRS a lot of money. And they fail the business. Some of them do. Don't be in that position. Again, this all comes down to living well below your means. You're going to be tempted not to, but put that off for 5 or 10 years. There will come the time when you can do it, and it's okay. But in the beginning, it's so important in the beginning. Those first couple of years are the toughest in this business. And the more money you have on hand and the less bills and debt, to the extent that you can, the easier this business is to survive it.
Yeah, that's good. Did you come into this business knowing that you're going to start recruiting, or when was that realization? When was that realization for you that you were like, I want to recruit and start building an agency?
I never wanted to get into the adult babysitting business. That's kind of what we call it. No, here's what I realized, guys. A couple of things. Number one, who makes the most money in this business? People at the top, always, right? Agents. Now, the thing in this business, agents can make a lot of money for sure, but the guys who make a really lot of money are the ones running the agency, right? And this is true in any corporate hierarchy or business model. The guy at the top is always pulling in the most. So I had I had the motivation to work my way to the top. And about 2 years, 2.5, 3 years in, I decided, well, I can either go the Medicare route because I like the idea of passive income. Medicare just seemed something that was a natural cross-sell, the final expense.
Yeah.
But I also like the idea of building an agency. And what I found was back then, if you think the MLM Kool-Aid stuff is bad now, back then it was terrible. There was nobody training agents. None of this stuff on YouTube from myself, Johnny, or any of these other guys that put out good content didn't exist. It was all a bunch of MLM crap. And so that was kind of my observation was, hey, I like training. I came from personal training. Why don't I go into building an agency and scale myself by duplication as opposed to adding another product line in? And it took a while, but eventually it worked. So that's why I went that route. It was just kind of I knew I couldn't do it all. That's a big mistake a lot of you guys make, is I'm going to sell final expense, Medicare, annuities, IUL right away as a brand new agent. Do not do that. laser focus on one thing and get really good at it and scale from there. And so I was thinking, well, I've had failure stories. That actually is a good thing because I'm not the stud who just naturally knows how to sell. I've screwed up. And I think teachers that have that experience have something unique to offer. So I was like, well, I could use that as my next step up, you know? So that's kind of why I went to the agency route.
Yeah. What, as you started recruiting, like how long did it take to really start seeing like actual like overrides start coming in that you can like, let me ask you this question, I guess, first. When was the right time to step out of the field and stop producing for you?
Yeah, excellent question. Excellent question. So I started recruiting in 2000. Let me paint the picture to put it in perspective. I started recruiting in 2013, 2014, somewhere in there. And I didn't get out of the field full time until summer of 2017. So we're talking like around 4 years of full-time final expense sales and full-time recruiting. Okay. That is excessively slow, but I am by nature very conservative. I had already failed the business. I already understood what it was like and the importance of having cash flow in a bankroll. So I was not going to trust people to go work. Yeah. I wanted to make sure I was making money off of my pen and the rest was gravy. So for me, it took me paying off all my debt, getting all my credit cards clear, taking care of all of my car payments and stuff. I wanted to be free and clear because what I told you earlier, I knew I did not want to have debt. And I just wanted to play it safe. That was kind of it. I just never wanted to go back to anything other than what I was doing, and I believed in it. So at that point, I went part-time. I think I fully stopped training agents, or I should say stopped selling clients, probably about 2019. Was like I was part-time up to that point doing ride-alongs, et cetera. So some takeaways here. Just because you start recruiting doesn't mean you should get out of the field. In fact, I think the guys out here who are doing YouTube videos like you, Johnny, versus me have more street cred in a sense because I'm not doing it anymore, guys. I'm full-time recruiting. I haven't sold a policy in probably like 3 or 4 years. But Johnny's out here crushing it, doing his thing. That is very credible. Like it's current relative information right now. For that reason, you shouldn't give up. Second of all, you need to make sure that you treat overrides as a gravy. In other words, like you live off of your production, not off of what you hope to get from the guys that you recruit. Because guess what? A lot of these guys you recruit ain't gonna do shit. Okay. So, I mean, if you're a good recruiter, 1 out of 15, maybe 1 out of 20 will be a good potential long-term agent. So you got to get through 19 to get that 20, right? That's just reality. So, to me, I don't know where it happened, but I think after years of culminating a bunch of agents and writing business and having a core, maybe 6 to 12 at that point, and we can talk about the scale because my scale of recruiting has just gone through the roof, but it was slow in the beginning. I felt more comfortable to pull off, but it again, maybe I'm kind of slow at things sometimes, but that's how long it took me. And I don't regret it. I'm glad it took.
Well, can we talk about that? Like how has scaling been for you?
Great. I mean, so I remember when I was like stuck at 20 agents, I talked to my wife and I was like, man, I only got 20 agents. I've been stuck here for 6 months. Like they're good. They're right in business, but I just can't seem to recruit anybody. This is like 14 or 15. And then I saw a competitor, a guy named Douglas Massey, who he's on YouTube. Some of you have probably seen him. And he put out a video. And I'm like, why is he sharing his information? He's an idiot. Like he was talking about the closing process and some tips. And I was like, what a moron. And then that was the devil on the shoulder, right? You know, like what an idiot, blah, blah, blah. Well, the angel on the shoulder is like, that's exactly the thing you should be doing, Dave, because if you give away your stuff for free, then people will be like, man, if this is free and it's this good, how great is it to work for the guy, right? Which Alex Hormozi talks about if you guys watch.
Oh, yeah. You know? Yeah.
And it's true. Like that guy can command whatever he wants. But if you give away great stuff, people, and especially in a business like this where skepticism and BS is at its highest and always has been, like to be the guy that gives stuff for free with no expectation consistently for years, like people like that. They love it because nobody else really does it. There's people now who are doing like you. But back then, nobody was doing it. Yeah. So, but that took time. And I think personally, especially with Family First Life, when they really started ramping up recruiting, because I remember when they were just mortgage protection back in 15 and 16, they were doing some recruiting. But by 17, I don't know what happened. I kind of blame it on them in a good way. They brought a lot more interest into this business, more than there ever have been. And I think I played off of some of that, because you can go look at my stats and you can see the acceleration of the view count go up. And so, yeah, I was just there in a sense, right place, right time, but, you know, practicing my craft, putting content out there. And when the trend played out, you know, I already was kind of established and got to take a part of that. So it was good.
What has like, let me ask you this. How long did it really, like, I know it took a little bit to get to where like you were actually like starting to see the overrides. Like, what was that like being able to make, I don't know, like 20 grand on overrides? Like what, or 10, 15, 20 grand on overrides? And like, what was your thought process in that moment, or in those type, like when that started happening? Because I think what tends to happen, or what we think is, it's like we can step off the gas. What was your mindset in that, like in those times that started happening and things started really snowballing?
Stick to the fundamentals, you know, like don't do anything dramatically different. I did pretty good when I got back after a year or so. I didn't do great out of this world until really COVID started. When COVID started, I tripled my income in like 2 years, my annual income. And it was just like, but that was the culmination of the fundamentals. And even when I was making more money than I knew what to do with, like I still practice what got me to that point, which is, you know, it's fundamentals, guys. Like it's talking to agents, sharing your opportunity, and then delivering on your promises, right? A lot of these places will talk about their opportunity, recruit them, but not deliver. Big problem, right? You don't want to be that guy. You want to be the guy that delivers on the promises. And the thing I can tell you is this: if you just do that and you execute that on a daily basis for 5 to 10 years, you by default build a brand. People want to work with you. Life becomes so much easier. But back to your question, I mean, yeah, I really didn't do anything. And I found this out too. For me personally, my spending habits didn't really change. How I thought about myself didn't change when the money hit. A lot of people think, you know, and some people, the money changes them, right? For me, I just kind of, you know, I still shop at Old Navy and wear the same clothes I've always had, and, you know, do the same things I always did, you know, with a few exceptions. But you get the point. Like the money, don't let it change you. Don't even let it change your behavior. If anything, it should reinforce that you're doing something right, and you should continue to do what is working until proven otherwise. Things do change, but you should be stacking dollars high. Again, building that bankroll is just absolutely critical. I always never wanted to be poor. So for me, it was like, if I just have a big fat roll of cash as I'm building this thing, I just know I can weather a lot. And that was always a big goal of mine.
Yeah. What so I know that you're really, you talk a lot about watch out for the MLMs, watch out for the recruiting, which I love. And so would you like, you said 1 out of 20 is really going to work out. Do you believe more in recruiting a small amount, or recruiting a larger amount to be able to grow that agency, and why or why not? Or why? Yeah, why?
I've done both. Excellent question. Let me tell you what happened when I let anybody in with a pulse and I didn't verify or cut the cards. Last year, I had a debt roll up of in excess of $100,000 off of probably 3 agents. Okay. One dude hit me for 60,000 with Royal Neighbors, put another 10 grand with GTL and a few others. One dude, another with 25,000 with Royal Neighbors. And these are all fraudulent applications, right? They just went in there, did the e-app to a fake client, and legitimately stole money, defrauded the company, the clients as well, obviously got their social security number, and I have to hold the bag. That's the problem with building an agency, right? So what I've enacted since then, to compare and contrast, is now we're very selective with who we choose. Our people have to apply to work with us. And that's not just like a 4 variable form, hit submit, and then we can't wait to talk to you. There's like 20 requirements. You have to do a video introducing yourself. People get pissed about that. I'm like, sorry, then you can't work for us. We got to see if you're legit. And then we do an interview with them. We quiz them. We want to make sure that they're paying attention. And then when we recruit them in, if they're not holding up their responsibility, we fire them. And then if they quit or they slack or we don't like them, we fire them. So the reason I've done all this is because, guys, like, you can recruit agents. There's a lot of people to recruit. But the problem is if you recruit just one wrong guy, it can be a $50,000 to $100,000 mistake. And it can wipe away all the profits that you made on your fledgling startup. And that's how it was with me. Thank God that I didn't get whacked like I did this year when I first started, because I would have been absolutely out of the business, right? So the point is, like Johnny asked, is you got to pick and choose who you're going to work with. They have to fit your culture. They got to fit your values. If, like, for example, with us, if you're a broker, you got to put down a lead deposit. I need your money up front paid to us, which is completely refundable after you show proof of buying leads. That thins the herd, because what we did prior to that, anybody who said they would buy leads could join, use my resources, my time, and then never do anything. And there's a lot of people like that, because what ended up happening is we were recruiting like 80 or 90 people a month. We recruit about 30 or 40, but our year over year revenue is up, right? Just because we thin the herd of people who won't actually take a chance on themselves, but gladly become an agent, aggressively get ready, right? So, but by requiring, one of many things that we've changed, by requiring this lead deposit and the risk of not getting it back if they don't buy leads within 30 days, it thins out people who won't make that decision if they're really, really going to do it until they've wasted your time. They now have to make that decision before they even get contracted with us, which is how I like it, right? Because I know I'm working with players here because they have put their money down up front even before they've started training. I'm excited about somebody like that because they're already taking a chance, like a measurable chance. And those likely are going to be much more successful than just average Joe who says they're going to do it but never actually pulls the trigger.
Yeah. So can you walk us through that process? Like,
Yeah.
of how much do you ask up front, and then do you just like send them like an invoice and they pay that, and then
I can
that look
share
like?
my screen if you want me to, or you just
That'd
want
be
me to talk
awesome.
through it. Whatever you
Yeah,
want.
that'd be awesome. I just let you share.
Okay. All right. Let me shut this stuff down here. Hold on 1 second. All right. So I'm going to show you guys my onboarding page. So after we've interviewed somebody and they've been accepted, they're sent to the following page. We want to systemize the onboarding process as much as possible so that you can take yourself out of the system. You are the bottleneck in your agency, guys. And if you are required to do tasks that are $5, $10 tasks, or tasks can be automated, you're going to slow down your rate of growth, if not just like make your life miserable.
Yeah.
So, and trust me, I know from personal experience. So let's share the screen. So this is an example page of what we do to onboard. First thing is we take a lot of the stuff that agents ask and put it in video format, right? There are things that I don't want to say 30, 40, 50 times a month to a new agent. Put it in video, right? It takes me out of the equation, makes the process faster to onboard them too. The first thing I do is, some of you who probably close forward, do y'all remember Scared Straight? I think it was on MTV, and, the hoodlums would go to the jail and the guy would, has been in there for like whacking 3 people, would scare them straight, like, you don't want to get in here and be somebody's boyfriend or whatever it was.
My
Yeah.
mom's
Yeah.
trying to listen to something, but
Yeah. Me. How you doing?
to my headphones.
What's up? Oh, kiss. Okay. All right. Yeah. Let's keep you here, guys. All right. Sorry. Can't help myself. Okay. So Scared Straight. So I have my version of Scared Straight. I show them where agents who have screwed me, because that's a big objective you should do, guys, if you're running an agency, is you need to scare people away that have the idea that they're going to defraud you. We show them a lawsuit where an agent did a $350,000 chargeback, believe it or not, that big. And we show how they ended up in jail in the Department of Corrections for 8 years in Illinois, right? They ended up in jail for 8 years. And so we show them this stuff because maybe somebody's trying to sneak in and rip me off. I want them to know that I'm not going to take this been and over anymore. Like, you will be pursued legally, criminally, and civilly. And it's just not worth the effort of robbing somebody if you're going to show force up front. It's just like a robber's looking at 2 houses. One has the lights off, nobody looks home, and the other one has the beware of dog, and you can hear the hungry pit bull behind the front door. Which house am I going to rob, right? The one that looks like an easy target. Likewise, you need to think about your business that way, because you're giving people advanced commissions, y'all. Like, that's a credit card to strangers. You need to qualify them, all right? Trust me. And you only get screwed like I have. So we showed them this first. We do an identity verification process too, to make sure they are who they say they are. I've talked to a lot of carriers and they've said, and this is true across the board, fraud is up through the roof. There are people who have pretended to be licensed insurance agents. They've taken information from a real life insurance agent to then get appointed with a company, to get the commission overrides or the payouts, then disappear. So this process right here, I make them basically show a liveness test and then upload their ID so that I'm able to see they are who they say they are. Again, another deterrent from somebody who may potentially rip you off or us off, right? Then in this page here, this is where we go through the lead deposit, why it's required, what the stipulations are. We usually just take a Venmo payment or PayPal or Zelle. This is all stuff that's very simple to set up, very easy to get access to, okay? And then we have a form that they understand that they've done it, that they understand what they're doing in case there's any issues that arise from that. We've got some sort of written acknowledgement that, you know, they're doing what they're doing. And then we'll go through Assurance Bay. That's what we use to do the contracting. We do everything on video to show them and how to walk through it, et cetera. Blah, 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 blah. I can slow down and walk through some of this stuff.
So have you seen a big decrease in people who like don't work with you because of the lead deposit? And then what's your convert? You haven't. It's like the same?
No, yes and no. I say the people who would have never invested money into leads are not joining, but they otherwise would have, because I can't stress enough. There's just a lot of people who are professional time wasters. You know, no offense to anybody over 60. There's a lot of people over 60 who are retired, have nothing else to do, but then to like pretend to be an agent. They'll come on and join things and never actually do anything. But that's just not people over 60. It's people under 62, trust me. But the point is by making them to walk the talk, if you will, by putting a small investment down, it really tests to see how serious they are, right? So, and guys, yes, I've cut my agent flow from about 80 to 40 to 30 to 40, but the 30 to 40 I get are really good quality. And I know they are because they put money up. Money talks, guys. You know, putting your money up front talks, because now there's almost a momentum, right? A motivation to get that money back. Like, people will work hard to go back to zero. It's funny. Getting them to go from 0 to 100,000 is a lot harder than getting them to go from like negative 5,000 back to zero, right? Ask casinos, right? That's how the whole concept works. So here we're getting them motivated to then go buy leads, right? To stay motivated, train, so they can get their money back and then start working.
I love that. That's really good. So from those, like, what percentage would you say end up going and buying leads?
I don't know the numbers exactly. I would say it's probably about 50 to 75%. So, and I'll be straight up with, here's the thing. Now, for me, the way my business model works is I have trainers who I've basically duplicated it in myself into them. They train agents one-on-one, et cetera. I pay them a wage plus a bonus based off of production. That's a sunk cost to me, right? At least the wage is. And the way I look at it with the deposit is, not that I'm looking to do this. I'd rather refund all of this, and so they go sell, because I'll make a lot more money that way. But at least if they didn't take action and they didn't buy leads, I now have a revenue source, right? And that, in a sense, in my mind, helps me cover the cost of my people that I'm paying them, right? So while I'm not trying to monetize this, right, it is a way to make a little money for the trouble they've given me by joining, going through the resource, because a lot of them will do the training and then never actually buy anything, right? But they've cost my people something, cost my company something. So this is a way to kind of leave with something, even though, like I said, I'd rather give it all back if that meant they buy leads and actually went to sell, because that's where the money's at.
Yeah. That's really good. So for that, like, would you recommend doing that to everybody, or just people like you that have trainers in place, like like pretty much, would you recommend that for everybody, or just people who like have the paid salary trainers in place?
I would do it for everybody. I'd do it if I wasn't working with them, because the thing is again, I'm very sensitive to it, because I know what it's like to have $100,000 stolen from me, right? Like, that's that money could have taken care of my family. And I know on top of that, that it didn't happen between 50 agents leaving chargebacks. It happened between 3 agents, right? So for me, I think you should do this, if for any other reason, than to scare away the people who can cost you tremendously and end your business. And the thing is, the people who understand you, and I explained this to them. I had to say, here's why we do this. This is why we do this. The people that want success in this business will understand that as long as you explain to them why. I just don't say arbitrarily, I need your money, don't ask why. Like, I explain it to them. I want them to understand. And what I found is the people who understand that, they'll pay it. And I give them their money back when they ask, after they show proof of buying leads. So yeah, I would do that if for any reason. It's think of it as an insurance policy you're getting paid on. You're going to get rid of the weak hands that never would buy leads, because if they're not willing to make an investment now, I promise you, they probably won't be willing to do it 2 weeks later, because now they're even less motivated because they've realized this isn't a cakewalk. You got to know a script. You got to work 40, 50 hours a week, right? And people are going to get afraid. And a lot of people walk away at that point. I'd rather get rid of them now before even talking to them or talking to them marginally than after hours of time wasted on them later. So yeah, I definitely think everybody should do it.
Yeah. How do you get new agents like started, motivated, ready to go, and like not just bring people in, but have them like come in and actually start writing business?
I mean, it's, YouTube. I mean, the secret power of YouTube is that you're a celebrity that nobody knows. I mean, a small people, I can go walk around town, nobody knows who I am, but talking to you guys, most of you probably hopefully watched my content. If you haven't, please do.
His name's David Duford. Just go look him up.
Yeah. So by the time somebody applies, they know what I'm about. They know what I stand for. They know what I stand against.
Yeah.
They know how the business works. They're excited. They've seen testimonials. They've seen case studies. They've seen how I give everything away. They're super excited by the time they apply. So I leverage that, right? That's why everybody here who builds should have some content. You don't have to go. I mean, I think everybody here should build a channel, like, and give it serious attention if you're building an agency. But by just having some basic content out there that kind of develops a relationship with the person. So by the time they talk to you, they already know, like, and trust you. That's powerful. And you do that at scale, right? And it allows you to teach them about the business without having to say, well, let me explain to you what life insurance is. And let's talk about final expense. And, blah, blah, you don't have to do that all the time. So
yeah, I agree. Yeah. I mean, I've only been doing it for like real hardcore, like about 5 or 6 months, but like the like people that watch YouTube, you don't have to explain how to go from 1 to 3. You'd say how to go from 3 to 10. You like the basics of the business. Like,
and there's different ways to do things. Like there's pros and cons to it, right? So one of my angles is training and support and mentorship, and people who have started at an MLM and who have been promised something that didn't deliver, they totally understand as we go into training and support, the difference in lead quality, kind of what these MLMs do. They love it because they've been there, right?
Yeah.
But it's a fixed pie. And there's a whole other market of people who would love to be in this business that don't know about it. So you can target people who, don't know anything about insurance, but the flip side to that is it takes a lot more time to get them involved, engaged, licensed, started while they have a full-time job, the consequences of leaving that. So there's different ways to do this business, and they all have pros and cons.
Yeah, it's because that's I've thought about, hey, what's the best route to go? Do you go out and cater to that, or I feel like it's just picking up in a way low-hanging fruit of like just talking to licensed agents, because like they already know the business, right? So
well, that's a problem sometimes. Sometimes they know the business and they don't need training, and or they've got bad habits they picked up from somewhere else. Like, it's not all rainbows and sunshine, it's just like anything else, right? And then the experienced dudes, like, look, the experienced guys, they're all, if everything is great and there's no problems, you're not in the market to switch, right? So the guys that are crushing it, unless you just time it right, they're very hard to recruit, right? Like, you got to be with them, you got to stick with them. The guy that I do my upline with, which is 360 Financial Group, I picked up one contract with him, I think in 2013, and I didn't switch all my contracts over for like 2 years, right? So he developed a relationship with me. And when things changed, the easiest thing was like, well, let me just go to this guy. I already trust him, because trust ultimately is what the best agents desire. They don't want to be screwed again. Usually there's a story. And to be at the highest echelons and recruit the best agents, the quality agents, it's all about trust and backing up what you say with action and not deviating from that. So that's the downside of recruiting. The experienced guys, it just take a lot of time. It's worth it, but it's just not, it's a long tail type of sales cycle.
Yeah, that's so good. And by the way, guys, so I'm gonna ask one more question, and then you guys can feel free to ask questions. Just put a 1 in the chat, a number 1 in the chat if you want to ask a question, and we'll pretty much start.
Yeah, I'll answer as long as you guys have them.
Yeah, so just put the ones in the chat, and then we'll kind of go from there. I have one more question that I did want to ask. What are some questions you ask in the interview process, and like what are some characteristics of good agents?
Sure.
That you see.
Yeah, let me pull up my list. I can share my screen with you. Kind of go over them. Hold on 1 second here.
There's only one person that wants to ask a question. To the celebrity.
It's okay. All right. So this is the application form. I'll start here and then kind of walk you through kind of what else we do. So we want to, of course, track where people hear about us, right? With the different types of marketing that we do. We want to know if they're licensed or unlicensed. It's not a disqualifier if they're not licensed. We just want to know the time horizon and getting started. We also want to know where their interest lies. We recruit agents in final expense telesales and final expense face-to-face. Okay. So we're not recruiting anymore agents who are direct, who just want to sell Medicare. We'll teach agents later on and that's a whole another conversation. But strictly what we're recruiting for brand new agents is just final expense. We want to know, is it telesales or face-to-face? So we don't want to talk to people and say, I want to sell Obamacare. No, you got to sell final expense. We don't even want to talk to you because it's just not a match, right? We want to know budget. Okay, guys, very important. Budget. Need to ask them up front, are you willing to invest X, whatever your budget is that's required to buy leads at an appropriate pace to give your agent the best chance of success. If they don't have a budget and you don't have a free lead program like us, they're disqualified. Why would you want to train? If you don't have a free lead program or some way that you can predictably develop leads, you're doing them a disservice and you're doing yourself a disservice. You're wasting your valuable time on somebody who can't even participate in the fundamentals of your business model, buying leads. So you don't want to talk to those people, okay? Part-time or full-time, some agencies don't recruit part-timers. I always have. Full-timers are definitely way more profitable agents for us. We've done the numbers, they're like 3 to 5 times more profitable and take the same amount of time. So it's like, you may not want to do part-timers. You may just want to do full-time. There's pros and cons to those, but that's another thing. If they have a vector, we do not recruit them. That means they owe money to they have a chargeback. Until they pay the chargeback off entirely, we don't do business with agents. If you owe money somewhere, you're a deadbeat in our eyes, and we don't want to be the next place where you're going to run a bunch of chargebacks up. How do I know that? They used to not do that, and then I pay the price. So that doesn't mean like you got advanced debt. We're talking like you had chargebacks, lapses, you didn't pay the chargebacks in 2 or 3 months, and you're not paying actively to pay it off, right? Like we'll find that out, and if you have that, we don't want to work with it, right? We like to know which IMO and carriers they have, just because maybe you're with one of those IMOs that don't release for 12 months, wink, wink, and we need to figure out how to find other carriers to move you with instead, because you're going to be stuck because they don't play the game of releases anymore. And then we require them to do videos, right? So we want to see who they are. Some people get freaked out by this. It's no big deal. We just want to make sure, are you presentable, right? Like we've had people show up in their underwear, literally, like they're dressed up in their pajamas doing an interview. Like, come on, we're not going to work with you. So we're actively looking for reasons not to do business with somebody, because there's a lot more people that say they want to do this business that won't actually do what it takes, right? So we're trying to filter that stuff out now. We also do a role play of the script just to see how they read and react to constructive criticism. So on our interview process, we'll go through an opening script, something like this, and then my interviewer will be like, we'll listen to it and say, hey, that didn't sound good. Do this instead. So we're testing them to see how well they handle coaching. And do they take what we tell them and fix what was broken? Because if we tell them something that works, something to fix, and they don't fix it, they're not coachable. So it's like you should see instant improvement from a coaching call. Like this morning, I coached a guy who's going to help us some sponsorship, and we went through the script. I gave him some pointers, and I could tell by the end of that hour-long call, he's already gotten better. Like that's somebody who's taking coaching. Whereas somebody who takes, we've had people laugh and scoff at some of they're like, well, I don't do it that way. It's like, bye-bye, you don't have to business with you. So we want to test their ability to be coached and accept coaching, right? And we'll say something like, so what makes you different from the other agents? We got a lot of people apply. Why should we recruit you? We're looking for good answers there. If they say, well, I'm the greatest. No, you're not, next, right? So yeah, so those are some things we look for. I'll tell you one last thing. I learned this from Alex Shamosi. He has a great video released about 6 months ago on building a sales team. Highly recommend all y'all pick this up. He mentions this in his videos kind of off and on. And he mentioned this in his most recent video about building a course that's successful. And he said the thing that you want to do, and this applies to recruiting, is it's way easier to make somebody an 8, 9, or 10. Like think of it like, how would you grade a salesperson on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best, 1 being the worst, right? It's way easier to build a rock solid, savage team that starts as a 6 or 7 than to build them to an 8, 9, or 10 than it is to take a bunch of losers who are 1s and 2s and expect them to even get to a 6, right? So the point is, what you should be recruiting for are the people who have inherent capability. They're a 6, right? Like you can tell, like they're a diamond in the rough. They may not know everything, and we don't expect them to, but they obviously have something there, and you can sense it, you can feel it through the questions you've asked, and you think you can get them to an 8 or a 9. That's who you want to focus on finding, the 6 and the 7s and better. If you find somebody who's like, well, it's like a 5, don't recruit that person. They're never going to get better than a 6 or a 7, because taking them to that level of being a 9 or 10 is an insurmountable task. I'd rather take the people who have the capabilities already. That's a lot easier to take them to the higher level. So that's a big thing that we're looking for in our interview process, because we just know it's like you can't teach the dog to sing, so why try?
100%. All right, Mr. Eric Webster.
Hey, David. Thank you for the training today.
Welcome.
So I have a question. We're looking at scaling up, moving over from non-ACA health insurance over to a life insurance IMO that Johnny's also with as well. The reason we're going with them is because they have chargeback prevention, which would save us from, getting buried, $100,000, $200,000 in, and that's the primary reason we're looking at going with them. We're debating on 2 different models. The first model is hire en masse, kick their ass, hire 40, 50, 60 people a week and put them through the gauntlet and try to find your, 3 to 5 gems out of that. The other side of the argument is we have a beautiful facility here, and it's to bring them in for 2 to 4 weeks, get them stabilized, and then allow them to work from home. Do you feel that the regional model where you bring them in and then, spin them out is better than just going nationwide and going all 40 states, and trying to... We're going back and forth about that.
A couple of suggestions, and I know you didn't ask me this, but I'm going to tell you. 1, your training cycle should be a week or less. 2 to 4 weeks to sell life insurance, you're just going to get a lot of professional tire kickers. Just they need our people remotely, nationally. You're thinking about bringing them in. I recruit agents nationally. They are sales ready, license in hand. When they have their license and they apply, or I should say they start contracting, they're in the field 7 days from now, from that point. I don't want them sitting around getting aggressively ready to sell. They'll lose momentum. We used to do 10 to 15 days, and I'm like, bullshit. We can cut that in half. Like people need to get out there and sell. That's how you learn this business. It's not sitting here academically going through scripts. To some extent, that's good, but then you start getting diminishing returns. It's time to get in the field. There's time to get on the phone, right? So that's the big thing. And what you'll find is if you can cut your training volume from 4 weeks to 1 week, your turnover rate now is increased 4 times, right? You can get agents in the field 4 times as fast. That means you can bring them in 4 times as fast. So your overall capacity to scale is 4 times better because you don't need this drawn out, unnecessary 4-week period of time, in my opinion. So you're able to grow faster because of that. And I just think on some level, some people cannot cut this business. You just got to throw them out there after some good training in a short but reasonable amount of time to see what they're made of. So that's number 1. Number 2, the chargeback prevention thing. I don't know who this is, how this works, but here's my opinion without having really any prior knowledge of it. There ain't no such thing as a free lunch. What are you giving up for the idea of chargeback protection, right? It's like our free lead program. I have a free lead program, right? We put people at a 50% contract. That's what they're giving up, guys. They're giving up a lot of commission relative to our brokers, which are at 100, 110, 120, depending on their experience level. But we carry the cost and the risk of the leads. So if they're carrying the cost or the risk of the chargebacks, it's likely that there is some kind of downside to you, okay? Another thing you need to think about too, and I'll mention this with the creation of the agency, every single person here who wants to build should be thinking with the end in mind. And there has not been a time right now that the exit equity opportunity has been at its highest. There are more private equity and big companies that are buying out agencies as we speak. I have one that I've talked to that is offering a 15 times multiple. That's unheard of. My dad sold his business in the chemical business for 8 times multiple back when he was 49 in 2006.
That's crazy still.
It's freaking crazy. Okay. So if you're netting $1 million in what's called EBITDA, which is this, just think about net income after expenses roughly, that's a $15 million payout with 75 to 80% cash up front at closing, and then the 20% over the next couple of years. And that's, so my point is, guys, this is what excites me, is that if you start thinking like this is what's possible if you don't have any, if you're not clamped down. So I don't know, like, so the first thing I would think is if you give up the risk of having chargebacks, do you really own your business? Is it a franchise operation? Are you in a position where you can't sell out if you could? See, these are things that are really important that everybody here needs to consider. Is like, if they're saying there's no chargebacks, boy, they're probably taking more out of something somewhere else to cover for this that would make it worth it, right? Because it is a real risk. And then the last thing I will say, Eric, with the national versus local model, dude, hands-on absolutely trumps. Like physical hands-on in your call center, out in the field with them, that trumps the overall success rate. Definitely trumps the national model, right? So I like that model. It's restricted geographically, right? So there's issues, right? You know, as far as scalability, potentially, probably not, but potentially, right? So there's a give and take. I personally, I did the regional model because this is a lifestyle business. It was for a long time for me. And I just wanted to be able to work out of my house. I still do, not have a bunch of, you know, corporate or commercial leases for additional costs that really didn't serve the purpose of expanding the business. But yeah, there's a sacrifice to it, you know, but if I had people coming in and I could train them, see them in the field, do all that stuff, success rates would be higher. So anyways, a lot of stuff to throw at you. I hope it was helpful.
Yeah, that's so good. Mr. Alan Cavalish had a question.
Yeah, David, first of all, thanks for pouring into us. You may not be a celebrity walking down your own street, but you're definitely a celebrity to be on a Zoom call with me. I appreciate that. I can't imagine you gave us so much information. The way you're qualifying when you're recruiting is amazing to me. I think it's going to be crazy to see your business in another year or two qualifying people that way. But I kind of had a question about, in this industry and in these platforms, so many people in your position are focusing on final expense.
Right.
I did see that you have annuities and some other things going on. I specialize in cash value policies, high cash value policies, and annuities.
Sure.
And I don't see anybody really recruiting that in that realm or building an agency directly that way. Why do you suppose that is? Do you have any insight there?
It's not a mass market product. So the thing about this isn't an insult. Okay, I'm thinking about building an agency at scale where you can depend on hundreds of people to pay your bills, right, through overrides. The problem, the nice thing about final expense, and I think to a lesser extent now mortgage protection since home sales have slowed down, is that final expense is a growing market. It's 10 to 11,000 people a day turn 65. That represents a mindset shift to retirement and preparing for the end. More people are ending up with less money than they thought. That's why so many more people are still working than they thought they would. And final expense becomes a real product that is exciting and is expanding. And it's I won't say it's easy. It is simple though. It's simple to pick up. You can do it in a week. You can learn the business. You can learn the script. You can get leads, lots of options, endless out there, and go to work. And when you recruit, people want to make money now. Like 90% of the people I work with need to make money last week. Like it's not like they're sitting on money, right? It kind of goes back to that first thing we said, or thing we said earlier. Like the people who are the best prospects aren't in the market, right? People are sitting on a lot of money and cash. They would probably make great agents, but they're not as motivated to go out there and work as the guy who's hungry and needs to make money. So the problem with annuities, and I'm not trying to discourage you, but in my mind, my initial reaction is, first of all, longer sales cycles, right? So you're talking to an agent that's going to take 30, 60, 90 days to make profit, right? Even if they work their friends and family or some strategy like that to make some initial sales. So it's a longer sales cycle. That may or may not be a problem. The other thing to me is the lead situation, right? The only reason final expense and mortgage protection has as much interest as they do is because it's easy to get leads, right? Yeah, there's a lot of crap leads out there, guys, but there's some good ones too. In the annuity space, my experience has been, and I would love to start an annuity division. I've talked about it for years. But the problem with annuities is you're either buying some kind of $300, $400, $500 internet lead that's allegedly been qualified, or paying that much per lead on a seminar, and which most agents, 10 leads for $5,000, most aren't going to do that. And then you've got or you're cross-selling an existing book of business, which means you've already been in the business for a while. So it's just been a very difficult thing to recruit to for me at as an easy of a scale as final expense. Because it's like, come on in, here it is. There's a lot of these people, let's go, right? Anywhere in the country. So that's my opinion. And that's kind of why we do some annuities, but like not as like a standalone line. It's just harder to recruit to for those reasons, and then the scale.
Yeah, that's a great question. But are those policies I'm not gonna write those, but I think for myself, and maybe even like, because all my friends are like 20s and married, and it's like, guess what? They bought a house. So like I like that high cash value stuff, but in terms of like scale, it's like the typical like it's a lot. I feel like what I've seen, the reason I chose like final expense is because anybody can do it. Like really, and like not everybody is built for that, but like it's not crazy because it's like there's a need there. They need some insurance. So, and it's like simple and duplicatable, and you're getting the cash flow is the sales cycle is a lot crazier. The biggest mistake I made when I first started is, I don't even know why my uplines let me do this, but I cut all my mortgage protection leads and just started getting annuity leads. And I was like, that was the worst decision ever, because I didn't get paid for like a month.
The old saying in this business is sell to the masses and dine with the classes. Like the biggest problem in this business is having people to talk to. I mean, like sales matters for sure, but most people are like, man, if I just get in front of X amount of people, I'd make great money. I just need to get in front of people, right? And having a product that facilitates presentations at a higher rate is the way to personally make money consistently, but also to scale and duplicate that in an agency model too.
Yeah. Luis, what's your question, bro?
All right, thanks for having me, David. Good talking to you.
Thanks for
So yeah, a lot of the stuff that you had mentioned is really great. And my wife is on here with me, Cherie. We're starting our agency, and we had pretty much had that sort of blinders wide open sort of aspect with the mortgage protection, IULs. I even wanted to explore the annuity space. I've been in the banking business for 25 years, so I'm not unfamiliar with how they work and how to sell them and so forth. But this has been really interesting in terms of really focusing, and I like what you said at the very beginning, is focus on one product and then kind of grow it out as you go. But that's just kind of how we're looking at the production cycle. But I guess my main question is, in growing our agency, we are really looking specifically for licensed individuals, but we do have a lot of unlicensed folks that apply. And my biggest frustration, and I was hoping that maybe you can kind of give me some insight on that, is, I'll send them a coupon that we've got for Excel training to get them trained up and so forth. And it's like they get into the system, and we've had very, very few that actually complete it, and then some that have completed it, but then just absolutely ghost me. So I'm not sure if it's just someone that's looking for a discount on getting an insurance license and then they skip out and go somewhere else. What's been your experience on that? And what would you recommend? Just sticking with insurance, with insured guys or with licensed people?
Well, so the problem with that, I'm not saying it's like don't do it, but the reality is, first of all, you're taking somebody. So there's two different markets for agents. The licensed guy gets it. They've probably been used and abused. They kind of have some street smarts now about the business, right? It's a different conversation with that guy. The values of what they want to see and their skepticism going to be different versus a brand new guy who's never heard of insurance till you introduce them. There's a lot longer of a road to cover to get them to the point of selling if they're unlicensed and if they're licensed. And you got to work through things like, well, what if I leave my job? What do my parents think? What does my spouse think, right? What is the risk I'm taking? Is it something that's actually a fruitful opportunity? And then along the way, they got to take the test. That means they got to make time for this. They got to show up to it. They got to do the thing, right? There's a lot more moving parts. And so I don't deliberately go after this market like if you look at a PHP, WFG, forget what you think about how they recruit. They go after that market and they've got processes in place to motivate somebody to go through that whole thing. Because for them, it's about getting new people in because they can teach them whatever they want to teach. So they think the way they want them to think. So I would be studying how they do that, how they recruit, because they do a really good job at scale, Primerica as well. And what you'll find is it usually starts with an opportunity meeting. You know, the guy with the Rolex and the Ferrari comes in and wows the audience about how much money you can make and gets everybody excited. Doesn't really talk about what you got to do, but gets them excited on the big picture, right? And that's kind of an inception moment. Like, wow, this guy doesn't seem that special. I think I can do it. So it gives them that momentum to then get the license, to get tested, to do the process. But all the while, you should be talking to them, reminding them of what the potential is in the business, so that when they finally get that license in at that point, they can start the process of learning how to sell and get out there. So it's just, I think you got to be more involved with that agent. You should have a much more deliberate process to remind them of what is at stake and what the potential is. Then the guy has already been licensed, already been through that, probably doesn't believe half of it anyway. So it's a different conversation.
Great advice.
Network
Thank you.
marketing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just more, it's network marketing, just with a little bit longer sales cycle because we got to get them licensed, which means anytime you take anything and it takes longer to get it, you're going to have more fallout just by default. Yeah. That's part of the reason, guys, why you should train your agents in like 7 days instead of 30. Because if it takes 30 days to make $1, it's like, well, it's just asking the guy a lot.
Yeah,
get him ready in 5 days, 7 days.
Yeah. Marcelo, what's up, man?
Hey, what's up? I'm not trying to recruit right now, but I just had a question. Like, what are some ways to kind of mitigate the chargebacks when you're on the call with them, like to not let that happen in the first place?
Like from the position of an agent? Yeah,
to try to mitigate chargebacks.
Yeah. So there's two things that you can do. First of all, you can't eliminate chargebacks, right? Let's all be honest. Nobody here, if you have 100% persistency, you probably just sold a policy or two last year to your mom, right? Like the rest of us are going to have chargebacks. It's a part of being in business. It's like shrinkage in a retail operation. Some people are just going to steal, even if you put in things to deter it, right? So with chargebacks, two things that matter. Number one is how you sell. Number two is what you sell, okay? The first thing, and these are things within your control, okay? So how you sell. I don't sell high pressure. I don't teach agents to sell high pressure. I teach them to be persistent, but consultative. We also don't push price. We use a tactic called selling the premium. So Marcel, if I can qualify you today for a program, can you afford somewhere between 150 to 200 a month? If they say, clutch their heart like Red Fox, or you guys know what I'm talking about. Then I'm saying, hey, no problem. What if I could get you another plan? And it was somewhere between $100 and $125 a month. Would that fit your budget? So I'll go down. I'm shameless. I'll sell a policy that's $10 a month. My cheapest final expense plan was like $8, right? I don't care. Policy is a policy. It saves lives, protects lives, right? So that way I'm getting the budget. That's probably the biggest issue, is that some people feel like they are pressured. Our clients in final expense are world-class procrastinators. They're poor. And poverty sometimes is the mentality. There are certainly people who have been in bad straits in life, but there's a mentality with poverty, and that's making bad financial decisions. And you're not going to change that mentality. So you got to work with it. So we drop the price down until they say, yes, I can afford it, right? So we don't have as much chargeback simply because we're not pushing something out of their budget, right? So that's big. The second thing is what you sell. And this is why I'm through and through an independent agent. My criticism of one carrier companies that just sell one product, it's not that they're bad products or a bad carrier. It's just they can never be the best option all the time to all their clients. There's no carrier that can be. And the only solution to mitigate that is by having options, right? If I come across Mildred with COPD and I push captive carrier that gives modified and a 2-year wait, that will get replaced in 90 days if a halfway decent agent comes behind with options like a Forrester's to do first day full coverage, right? For no other reason than the agent's got a better deal, right? You don't want to be that guy who is stuck with one carrier, because you will get a higher replacement rate because of it, regardless of what they say. Not to mention not going to sell as much because you don't have options. So that in itself will reduce chargebacks because you have options. You're maximizing the value of coverage for the client. And I think if you do both of those two things, Marcelo, you sell well, like we teach, or like what I teach, and you have a diversity of product selection that best cover the client, your persistency should be 85% to 90%. 90% maybe a little on the high side, probably 85%, give or take, is acceptable. But anything below 80% for sure, you either need to be independent with multiple carriers or you need to revisit how you sell. And I know for a fact that I replace people because they're too aggressive or oversell, or they're just a one-trick pony carrier. And, you know, that's why a lot of agents struggle. They don't have to.
So kind of just see what like they can manage and like
Say
a
that again.
consultative. So you're trying to see what they can manage in like a consultative kind of way.
Yeah. If you go into YouTube and you put in like David Duford selling the premium or David Duford pre-qualifying, you'll see some videos, and I go in a little bit more conversation and detail about selling the premium. That's huge. Like, I don't want to walk in and say, hey, this plan is at the close, and be like, we're going to write you up for this arbitrarily, meaning I just pulled a number out of my butt. You know, I want to make sure they've got the budget, because they got to keep the thing. I got to hope this thing stays on the book for 9 months so I can cover my advance, right? That's what I'm thinking. I hate chargebacks. I'd rather sell smaller coverage policies and no chargebacks than larger policies with chargebacks, because there's like this psychological thing that happens we all know of, right? So for me, budget is king. Now I'll reach for the big money, but I won't demand it. You know, I'll work it down to the clients like 100% sure they can afford it.
You said $8 a month. How much coverage was that?
It's like $1,000 policy with United Heritage. Some dude up in Rockwood, Tennessee. I remember. I think I drove an hour and a half to close that.
It doesn't even pay for gas.
Hey, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah, true. Santiago, what's up, man?
Thank you, David, for being on this call and pouring into us.
Yeah,
I'll try
yeah.
not to fanboy out, because your video was the first video I ever saw regarding insurance that made me dig into the industry. So
Good.
I'm here because of you. So full
Thank you.
circle. But
Thank you.
my question really is, you gave so much good stuff. I mean, so much good stuff. But I'm at a point here where I have some downlines that, you know, I'm trying to identify characteristics and design a process where we have a downline that's not really sticking to what they said they're going to do. So when do you kind of, you know, not cut off how much time you put into these people, but really kind of figure out the system of where you're not spending too much time with people that aren't just they're not going to make it happen, essentially.
Give me more context. Like, what did they say they were going to do and didn't?
So, you know, I'm going to dial tonight. Oh, I had something with my kid. Right. But then that ends up being like a trend.
Right.
And so it's
and
like,
it is. It's not a one-off occurrence. If they're just starting in this awesome business and they got to go to Taco Tuesday or Margarita Monday. We literally had an agent who did that. Like, we were like, okay, so Joe, one of my trainers, was like, okay, so here's your homework. You need to record yourself in the presentation 10 times tonight and return that to me tomorrow. Okay, great. Yeah, you got it? No, any question about that? Sound good? Yeah, sounds good. Great. Next morning shows up and they're like, I didn't do it. I had Margarita Monday to go to. And he's off the program now. We fired him. We don't play. And the thing is it's nervy to you, because you're putting all your hopes and dreams in these people to make something of themselves. Guess what? You can't make them be successful. I mean, it's their decision to take the action necessary to be successful. You can be the Sherpa that shows them the way up the mountain, but they got to climb that thing. And I know from personal experience that they ain't climbing that mountain of just recording some presentations or role playing. You think they're going to pick the phone up and actually call these people and do the real hard work that makes the money? No. You can go ahead and try. I certainly have, and have wasted countless hours. I get rid of them faster. And a cool thing too, Santiago, when you tell them that up front in the recruiting process, and then they see it happen to others, or they see it, they respect it. And you'll actually get better agents because of it. Because you don't play around because everybody knows after they've been in this business, it's just a lot of MLM BS, right? Anybody with a pulse, fog of mirror stuff. So if you're standing in contrast to that, they love it. They love it. That's what they tell us, at least.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm. Any more questions, y'all?
Yeah, any more questions? I know Austin said that his question got answered, but anybody else have any questions? All right, cool. All right, awesome. So let's see here.
I do have one quick question, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
So David, when an agent gets a lead, for like digitally created leads, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, or through the Google pay-per-click landing page, YouTube, direction, what do you coach them to, like, an acceptable closing percentage within like 30-day window of working a lead? 5%, 2%, 8%.
Are we talking final expense here?
Yeah, for final expense. At what point should you say that an agent is not either working the leads correctly, or you have a real conversion problem because of skills? Like, what's kind of like a average on a large scale?
I mean, you're going to have, are you providing the leads? Are you paying for them, or are they buying them?
They're buying them, though we're going to provide them with a discount.
Okay.
Based on production.
Yeah, I mean, so it's different. I mean, when you're not buying the leads, and this thing you gotta manage, and maybe that's where we're going here, is you're not going to care as much than if you were buying the leads, right? Because like if you're the one out the money, you got to have your internal metrics to know what your break-even point is, and how many sales equals so much in ROI, right? It's really important to even justify the program. But for me, it's like, are they happy with the money they're making, right? And you should have an idea based off of their production or their commission rates, how many leads they're getting, and at what cost they're purchasing for. You should be able to demonstrate what's possible, right? For me, I mean, a lot of it depends on the type of leads. If these are fresh and exclusive leads, I want to see agents converting at 5%. That's the goal, right? And these are outbound calls that I'm talking about. You may be talking about something different. 4 or 5%, somewhere in that range. They're going to justify their expense. They're going to see profit from it. Again, this is final expense. If it's any less than that, they're probably returning at a low rate, if not breaking even, kind of struggle with the business, right? So for me, it's in that 4 to 5% is the floor for most agents. But again, there's variables with that. What is their commission rate?
Sure.
That kind of thing.
Do you typically coach agents to expect like a 2-to-1 or a 3-to-1 ratio on advanced cash flow, or what's
2-to-1 to 3-to-1? I think 2-to-1 to 3-to-1 is the goal. Because sometimes you write direct express and the company doesn't advance it, or a guaranteed issue, right? It's going to be a little bit lower. So I think somewhere in that range is good. Are there agents who do better than that? Yeah, but at some point, ROI isn't as important. Once you've had a sustainable ROI that covers your expenses and you can profit well enough, it's just about scaling the ROI higher with more activity.
Yeah, because at the beginning, you're paying for your education. You're paying to be like, the whole goal at first, like, is honestly, like, I would argue, like, it's not to earn a bunch of money at the start, but it's more to learn the business and like get as many reps in as possible, because I wasn't crazy profitable at the beginning. And yeah, maybe I'd like to have, but that prepared me for the next season of the business, where month 10 to what is it now, 14, I've made, or 10 to 15, I've made over $100,000 just in that little time frame. So it's like, I think in that first, at the beginning, it's like, ROI is great. We definitely want to do that, but like, learn the business, stay in the game, make money as much as possible. And then continue going.
Well,
And so-
I'll kind of play devil's advocate, Johnny. I think if your guy came to you that you originally worked with and said, hey, look, you've got to make money in like 10 days or whatever the metric is, or you're fired. And if you saw at the point how the opportunity was in this business and you saw how great it could be working with said organization, there's something about setting a deadline that puts a fire under your butt, right? When you don't have like a direction or a deadline on taking action, a lot of people never even get started, right? But if like you're off the team, if you're not producing, because let's face it, most people can't do this business if they're not making money after a couple of weeks. That's just the reality of it. They lose hope. They lose faith in themselves in the business. So for me, that's our standard is you need to be making money in your first week, making sales in that first week, because I just know if the guy's not making money and everything's right, they've got great training. If they don't, that's different. But if they got great training, support, great carriers, great leads, if they ain't making sales in that first week, they're toast. That's for final expense, right? So we put a lot on them. We want to pressure makes diamonds.
Yeah.
And
that's good.
there's no reason you can't make sales your first week in final expense if it's done right.
Sweet. Oh, Marcel had one more question, and then we'll do this. We'll do the free 100 leads giveaway as well. So we'll do that right after this question. What's up, Marcelo?
Oh yeah, I was just wondering, like, what's a good time to start recruiting people? Like 3 months in, 5 months in, a year in. Like, what's a good time frame?
Well, so I didn't until about 2.5, 3 years in, roughly, right? And for me, I didn't want to recruit and not know the business. I think that's a big fault with these MLMs out there, is they recruit people to recruit. They don't, but all the while the people recruiting don't know that, the recruits are getting monetized off of selling bogus ass leads that are $0.25 a piece, and they resell them 3, 4, 5 times at $10 a piece. And they're serving a system that they're not benefiting in. And then the other side of it too is that if you don't know the business, if you actually got a stud or a pro, somebody with a lot of potential, they'll see right through that you're earning money off of them and not providing anything in return. And those guys leave and go somewhere else. And you don't need a bunch of studs to make money, but it's nice to have them, right? So my point is you don't have to be like the top 1% agent in the nation for 5 years in a row. But you got to know the business experientially. Like if somebody calls and says, hey, man, here's what I heard at the door. How do I work through this? You should be able to talk from experience, right?
Yeah.
And that's so critical. So for me, as you guys, if you watch my content, you know how I feel about the MLM stuff. I think it's just cart before horse kind of thinking. I think you can recruit reasonably well if you've had some success. You're a top 20% producer. So you're writing 10,000 or more a month in life business. That's kind of my metric. As long as you've been doing that for at minimum 6 months, closer to 12 months. That's all I'm asking for. Just because I know you'll run into bigger problems later on when it matters more if you don't put in the time and effort doing the crap that we all have to do and don't necessarily like picking the phone up, selling, go and see people, and doing that over and over again. But if you do that, you put the effort in early, it pays off in the long run. At least it has for me.